Hi guys, I'm Kasha. Welcome to the channel and welcome as always to our coffee times to discuss books and horror. And because Valentine is around the corner, I wanted to give you some book recommendations that you can read for Valentine's.
It's coffee time.
So I was thinking, about certain books that I enjoy, but that have kind of toxic relationships, those kind of relationships like the book You, which kind of inspired this video. So the concept for today's video is Be Mine. The story is about obsession, because sometimes love can become an obsession, and obsessions sometimes turn deadly. In these books, the good horror doesn't come from something paranormal or something that you cannot see. It doesn't come from monsters. It comes from humans, from the darkest sides of the human mind. And the first book that I'm gonna recommend you is obviously the book that inspired this video, which is You by Caroline Kepnes. I'm pretty sure most of you guys are familiar with the Netflix TV show adaptation. There has been now currently 4 books published in the series. I have only read until book 3, but I have loved these books, and I think part of it is because the way that they are told. It is though written in second person, so that might be something that not everybody enjoys, but that kind of puts you in the mind of Joe, our main character, who has issues and he cannot control his obsessions. And I think that hearing his thoughts and his reasoning for doing certain things is very interesting and kind of what makes me love the book and the story so much, even though it's a horrific story. So Joe Goldberg works at a bookstore, and one day this woman comes in and he immediately thinks that is the woman of his life, that is the one, and she's gonna love him. He already knows, there's no doubt. And he Googles her name after seeing her name on her credit card. So he goes to her social media, Facebook, other things, and he starts to learn absolutely everything that he can about her, because stalking is a big part when somebody is obsessed. And of course, he kind of plans a by chance meeting in order to ensure that they're gonna come together, because she wants him. He already knows, like, he's so toxic. So obviously Joe is gonna take over her life, and it gets really disturbing. It is kind of like a psychological thriller, and I personally really enjoy it. I know it's not for everybody, especially because of the way that it's written, but I really enjoyed it. So if you have not tried it yet, I do recommend it. I'm gonna catch up with book 4 this year because I wanna watch the TV show. I think back in the day I watched the first season and then I stopped because I wanted to read the books first. And it's been so long that I feel like I have to go back and rewatch the first season, but I want to finish the 4 books and then watch all the seasons. Now we have a classic, and this is a book that if you love people that are obsessed, you must have read this book. If you have not read it yet, get a copy, and that is Misery by Stephen King. I know, another Stephen King book, but hear me out. This book has one of the best villains ever, and the villain alone, Annie, is gonna chill you to the bone. This character is actually what makes this book so horrifying. Paul Sheldon is a very well-known novelist. He has published many books, and he ends up meeting by chance one of his biggest fans. He gets into a car accident in the middle of a snowstorm, and he's rescued by none other than Annie Wilkes, and she is his biggest fan. And she decides to take care of him. She puts him in a bed and she tends to him, brings him food and drinks. The thing is, the author is going to do something with his books that she's not gonna like, and she becomes violent, and he becomes trapped in that house. And it is a very interesting psychological tale as well, and it is a very intense one. If you have watched the movie, there is enough difference in the book for you to really enjoy the book. Plus, there is a lot more backstory when it comes to Paul Sheldon in the book that you might find interesting. The Collector by Joan Falls. And this one is a book about a man that is very disconnected from society. He has not been really going to school. He is unloved, uneducated, and he has an obsession for butterflies. So he collects butterflies. That is until he meets a woman and he becomes obsessed with her. That is Miranda, an art student, and after he becomes obsessed with her, he is gonna try to kidnap her and take her somewhere isolated because, you know, he thinks that by doing that, she's gonna have no other choice than to fall in love with him. I mean, obviously. I think there's something really interesting in this book, and that is there is a narration of the main character and also the female victims that is told kind of like in a diary kind of way, and I thought that was very interesting. The writing is very unique, so this is a book that might be a little bit awkward for some people. Perfume, Story of a Murder by Patrick Suskind, and this is one of those books that it might not be all 100% horror, but it probably is one of the most grossest, disturbing books that you will ever read. It is a very intense story about someone that is obsessed with something that is not quite right. And he is obsessed in recreating certain scents. And the way he does this is rather questionable. So we have this guy that has an extremely good sense of smell, and he loves fragrances and the smell of also young women, and that kind of drives him to murder. We are in the 18th century in France, and our main character is an apprentice at a company that creates perfumes. So he's kind of also behind the scenes trying to create different scents and mixing things together. And he becomes obsessed with the smell of young females. And he wants to preserve that smell for the future by creating perfumes. And that leads him to murder. This is one of those stories that is just depraved and kind of like really gross. So I don't know if it's gonna be for everybody, but I've always loved this story. I have good memories about this book because it was recommended to me by a German guy that I met a long time ago. And I love the movie as well. So if you've never read this one and you don't mind disgusting books, disturbed ones, then this might be one that you want to try. Last One to Die by Cynthia Murphy, and I picked this one because I wanted to include a YA book. The majority of books that are, you know, that include toxic relationships that are really extreme and are about obsession, they're mostly adult and probably for a reason. So I wanted to pick one that was YA in case somebody wanted to try something, you know, for this age group. Young brunette women are being attacked in the city of London, so somebody is obsessed in targeting women that all look the same. So Niam has just moved to London to attend drama school, and she's very excited about it. But then the series of murders start to really get dangerous because all the females are being targeted by this killer look exactly like her. So with a serial killer on the loose that seems to be obsessed and target females that are her age and look like her, she needs to be really careful when she goes out at night. And also somehow these killings are starting to get too close to her. She's starting to be in the center of all of these kills. So what is going on and who is doing this and why is she in the middle? This is a very entertaining and fast-paced murder investigation. It's a great thriller for YA readers, and I do recommend it. I recommend any of Cynthia Murphy's books, but this one kind of filled that premise of somebody obsessed with a specific type of females. Zombie by Joyce Carol Oates, and this is a short book in which the author puts you again into the mind of a serial killer, which is something that I really enjoy. I just love hearing the thoughts of serial killers and murderers because I just find so fascinating the way they think and the way they kind of rationalize things that are not rational, and how in their minds things that they have done or said are perfectly fine and they don't see what's wrong with them. And also in this story, she puts you in the mind of the serial killer for you to discover that he has no empathy He has no friends and he's very detached from society and the rules of society. It's very chilling to read some of the conversations he has with the other characters and how dehumanized he is. That's quite chilling. Into the Darkest Corner by Elizabeth Haynes, and this is a domestic thriller. So Catherine meets this guy that seems to be too perfect, too good to be true, and she cannot believe her luck when he likes her back. So we already see the problem here, right? Right, and things are too good to be true, you know? Shit goes down. So Catherine at the beginning thinks is very flattering and getting all the attention and the sex is great, but then Lee starts to get very jealous very quickly, and there's things about Lee that she doesn't know yet. He can get very violent very quickly. This book has a very well executed example of telling a story from the past in the present. So if that's something that you enjoy, you might really like this book. I think for me the most unsettling part here was seeing Catherine and how the Catherine from the past and the Catherine from the present are so completely different characters, and it almost reads as different characters until you realize that it's the same person talking to you. But I would also advise you to check the trigger warnings for this one. Now let's go with another kind of classic, and that is Mine by Robert McCammon. This is a chunky book, but I think this one is worth your time. So our main character in the 60s belonged to a very radical group, and now we are in the 80s and her life is much different. So she's waiting to be reunited with her lover and she wants to present him with their child, their baby. The only problem is there is no baby. So she's like, what do I do? So the logical thing for her is, I'm just gonna steal a baby. And so she's like, you know, I'm gonna go to the hospital and I'm gonna steal a child. And that's what she does. And she steals a baby from the hospital, but the mother of the baby starts to chase her. So we get into a cross-country kind of like road chase. A woman chasing the other one because she's stolen her baby, and it gets very intense. People die. It's bloody. And I think even though it might be a bit long, but the chase part and everything is very much worth it. This Sweet Sickness by Patricia Highsmith. And this is a very intricate psychological tale. So this is for my peeps that love psychological horror. We follow David. He is a young scientist and he is convinced that life is gonna turn out to be perfect, that everything is gonna work out for him. And he becomes obsessed with a married woman, and he decides that, you know, he's gonna make a plan for himself to steal her from the husband. He's gonna do anything it takes to make her fall in love with him. Basically, it's a tale of a deluded loner. So this guy that it is completely delulu. So also similar to Joe, he's also very delusional. I think that's a common thread on this kind of stalkers, murderers that get obsessed with certain people. It doesn't have to be women, it can also be men, or a woman might be obsessed with a man. But this is something that obviously I like to read about. This novel is a slow burn, so keep that in mind. And also there is nothing quite uplifting or anything truly redeeming in this story, so it's quite dark. Just putting it out there in case you guys love more of a dark tale but that has uplifting moments. It's not this one. And last but not least, we have Creep by Jennifer Hillier. So this is an author that I have been meaning to try, and this is her debut novel, and I always see Erin talking about this author and how much she loves her thrillers, so I feel like I need to try them at some point. This is another psychological thriller that has the same mentality, you know, if he can't have her, well, then she should maybe die, you know, then it's for nobody, like either mine or no one's. Sheila is a psychology professor and she starts a sexual affair with one of her graduate students, and she's enjoying it, she's having a lot of fun, and it's very intense, but she's also going to marry a really great man, a banker. So at some point after a couple of months of the affair, she decides to end it. But Ethan, the graduate student, he's not gonna accept that. He's not gonna accept that. It's just not happening. The story is told from different perspectives and it has a very memorable cast of characters, and Ethan is gonna do absolutely anything that he can to ruin Sheila, to make her take him back. He's ready to ruin her reputation. I think he even blackmails her and everything. So this is an intense cat and mouse tale. And these were, you guys, my 10 recommendations for this Valentine's Day. These are stories about people that are obsessed with someone they love, or a specific type of victims when it comes to the serial killers in this list. I hope that you enjoyed it. I tried to make something different and fun when it comes to recommendations for this month, to kind of give you some options for Valentine. So let me know down below if you had heard of these books and which other books that are kind of horror thrillers that have the theme of obsession and someone that has to be theirs, be mine. If you have any other recommendations, leave them in the comments down below. Thank you guys as always so much for watching, and I hope to see you all, as always, in our next coffee time. Bye!